Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello, student. Welcome to the TV learning program, where you're going to be learning very many courses in biology and other subjects. As usual, I'm teacher Hubert, who is going to be taking you through the biology of the year 3, which is circulatory system, And lesson 1, we're going to be discussing about types of saturation. Here, we have the learning objectives. Define the circulatory system as a system of blood vessels, with a pump and valves to ensure one-way flow of blood. The second learning objective, explain how blood is pumped away from the heart and returned through the veins. 3 is to explain the advantages of a double saturation over a single saturation. When you talk about what are the function of human circulatory system, what is the function? The human circulatory system is responsible for pumping the blood throughout the body parts, the body parts. So we can talk about it is a pumping organ that pumps blood through the body parts. And we talk about the circulatory system is made up, the major components of circulatory system, components of human circulatory system. One student think about it and tell me what are the major components of human circulatory system. Good. We have the heart as an essential part that's responsible for pumping blood to different parts of the body. We have the blood. The third, we have the blood vessels. So quickly, let's talk about 2 types of saturation. We have 2 types of saturation. As I'm going to mention them, we have number 1 is a open saturation, and we have number 2 is a closed saturation. Under open saturation, which we mentioned that open saturation is a type of saturation where the blood moves in a closed, where the blood is in direct contact with the body cells, which is found in most of the insects. The blood must be direct in contact with the body cells. We talk about open-ended. There are no closed vessels. The blood moves it is open-ended, and the blood must be in direct contact with the body cells. And we have a closed circulatory system. Under closed circulatory system, we have 2. We have a single saturation and a double saturation. Let's try to see this thing that I'm telling you. What is circulatory system? What are the types of circulatory system? We mentioned that circulatory system is a system of blood vessels. As I mentioned, one of the major components of circulatory system is blood vessels, with the pump and valves to ensure one-way flow of blood. There are 2 types of circulatory system. As I mentioned it in animals, we have open circulatory system, in which the fluid or the fluid blood is in contact with the body cells. As I mentioned, it is in direct contact with the body cells. There are no closed vessels. The internal organs are suspended in a network of blood-filled sinuses, which collectively form a hemicoil. They are collectively form what you call hemicoil, and that hemicoil must be direct in contact with the body cells. Blood from the heart mixes with the interstitial fluid. The blood from the heart is mixed with the interstitial fluid and hymochore to form what you call hymolymph. That is most of the insects. They don't have blood saturation. They have what you call lymph fluid, which normally transports nutrients, oxygen, and even removing of waste products from the body cells or from the tissues of some of the organism. That is say, the cells and a collective, what you call a hemolymph, is in direct contact with the body cells. Here we have the diagram. We have the heart. This is open-ended. This one is open-ended. This one is open-ended. So the lymph fluid must be in direct contact with the body cells. The surrounding interstitial fluid, which is surrounding these cells, must be in direct contact. The blood does not move into a closed vessels. We have, this is an insect, and this is a tubular heart. The heart is tubular. If I say tubular, it has open. They have open that normally connects, which transports nutrients to the cells, because the cells need oxygen, need nutrients if they are to survive. So that is an example of an open circulatory system in insect. This is the diagram above was an open circulatory system. Let's talk about closed circulatory system. In a closed circulatory system, we have two types of students. Think about it, and in a short time, you give me what are those two types of closed circulatory system. We have a single saturation. We have a double saturation. Single or double saturation. Circulatory system in which the blood remains enclosed in a system of vessels. The blood must be enclosed in vessels, not in a direct contact with the body cells as we talked about open circulatory system. Closed circulatory system, the blood must be remaining enclosed in the vessels, not in direct contact with the body cells. We have under this, we have a single circulatory system which occurs, which is normally found. The question is, where do we normally find commonly a single circulatory system? Single circulatory system commonly is normally found in fish, in which the blood passes only once through the heart in each complete circuit of the body. The blood has to make a single circuit before it is pumped different parts of the body. And we can have a diagram or a figure 2. This one was figure 1, was trying to show the diagram of an open circulatory system. Diagram 2 is going to try to show us the diagram of a single circulatory system, and commonly I told you it is found in fish. Fish has a single circulatory system. Insect has open circulatory system. Let's have the diagram showing a single circulatory system. Quickly, let us go to the diagram that tries to show us what is a single circulatory system that is found in fish. You know that this is the structure of the heart. It has the ventricles and atrium. The ventricle and atrium. This is the structure of the heart of a fish. We have this side, as you are trying to see, we have that part of the right-hand side of the chamber of the heart. It is blue in color. This one is student. This side is reddish in color. What does it indicate? What does it signify, and what does it have an implication on our diagram? Our diagram, the blue side, it shows the chamber that carries the blood, where the blood without oxygen. This chamber of the heart tries to show that the blood moves. The blood that moves in that chamber is oxygenated. So we are talking about a single saturation. The blood comes from the heart. It is carried to the gills, not lungs, to the gills, because we know that the gills are respiratory organ of the fish. The blood is carried by the artery. It goes to the lungs, into capillaries in the lungs. It is oxygenated. After acquiring oxygen, the blood does not need to go back to the heart. The blood goes directly to the body tissues or to the body capillaries. From the heart to the lungs, from the lungs to the body parts. So it is a single saturation, then it comes back to the heart. Let me just repeat, from the heart to the gills, and the gills for what? A respiratory organ of the fish is the gills. After from the gills, it gets oxygen. The blood comes back, goes to, from being oxygenated, the blood goes to the body parts, or to the body capillaries, to the body tissues. And after from there, the blood comes back to the heart. It is a single saturation from the heart to the gills, from the gills to the body tissues, then back to the heart, which is a single saturation. I think the diagram tries to illustrate the whole process of a single saturation. All right. And which is under closed system. While the blood passes through the heart twice. What about that one where the blood passes into the heart twice? For a complete full circuit of the body is referred to as a double saturation. I mentioned there are two types. We have open. There are two types of saturation. As you can try to see, we have one which is open circulatory system, open saturation, where the blood is in direct contact with the body cells. We have number two, which is we have open and we have closed circulatory system, closed saturation. Under this closed saturation, we have two that are involved there. We have a single saturation, and I've mentioned a single saturation is normally found, e.g. is found in fish, and here, this one we said it's found in insects. In insects, we also have a single saturation, and we also have what we call a double saturation. So that is why I'm trying to show. We have under closed system, we have a single saturation that is found in fish. This one is found mostly in mammals and birds. And we are talking about human circulatory system, where humans are also included in mammals. Let's have the diagram. I said when the blood passes through the heart twice before a complete full circuit of the body is referred to as a double saturation. Let me just try to have some diagrams, the diagrams of some of different animals and different, we have the grasshopper, which is an example of insect. We have fish, we have the lion. Do the following animals have the same circulatory system? Student, think about it in a short time, and you tell me if these animals surely they have the same circulatory system. I think you've got the answer. The answer is no, because they don't have the same circulatory system. No, the grasshopper, fish, and lion do not have the same circulatory system because one has got open circulatory system, and I mentioned open circulatory system is a system where the blood is in a direct contact with the body cells, and they are collectively known as what you call hemolymph. We have a closed circulatory system. Some they have single. Some of the animals they have single circulatory system, and other they have a double circulatory system. So it means if you can try to identify these animals, and you try to go back and try to see these animals, this one has got an open circulatory system. The fish is an example that has a single circulatory system where the blood moves once for a complete circuit. The lion has got a double saturation. All right? So the fish and the lion, both they are found in they have closed circulatory system. Then the grasshopper has got an open circulatory system. I think you have understood. These three animals, they don't have the same circulatory system. Let's continue with what I was trying to mention. Let's talk about something which is very interesting, circulatory system in human beings. How does human circulatory system works? The human circulatory system is the type of circulatory system in which the blood passes through the heart twice before a complete full circuit, the blood has to pass through the heart, twice to make a complete circuit. So it means that it is a double saturation. It is found, this double saturation is commonly found in the body of other mammals, as I mentioned it before, and even some of the birds. So double saturation is commonly found closed circulatory system, which is under closed circulatory system. We have a double circulatory system where the blood has to move twice into the diagram. Let's have the diagram, I think. Let's have the diagram of showing the a double saturation. As remember, we have some key diagrams. We have oxygenated blood. We have a deoxygenated blood. We have very many parts that makes up this circulatory system. We have pulmonary artery. We have capillaries in the lungs. We have pulmonary vein. We have aorta. We have the heart and the body tissues. This right chamber of the heart, if I say right chamber on my right hand side, this is my right hand side, this is my left hand side. On the left hand side, we can automatically, this is the right hand side of the heart, carries the oxygenated blood. This chamber, which is reddish in color, shows the blood is oxygenated, the blood with oxygen. Follow me very quickly. The blood, we know, students, blood comes from different body parts or body tissues. The blood, after losing more oxygen, because oxygen is transporting nutrients, transporting oxygen, and transporting even waste products from the body. It comes back to the heart. It is brought by the vena cava. The vena cava brings the blood to the first chamber of the heart, because we know that the heart is four-chambered. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is four-chambered. So it enters in that chamber. Now it is carried away from the heart to be oxygenated by pulmonary artery. It goes to the lungs. After reaching into the lungs is the one that provides oxygen. That's a storehouse. We know the lungs has what you call the basic unit of the lungs is called they are called alveolar sac, which stores oxygen. And now it is oxygenated. The blood comes back to the heart when it is oxygenated. After reaching into the heart, the blood is pumped to the different body parts. That is what we're talking about, twice into the heart. From the body to the heart. Goes to the lungs, back to the heart. That is a double saturation. And back to the heart. Then from the heart, it is pumped to different parts of the body through aortic artery. Remember to mention this function. All arteries carries oxygenated blood, except pulmonary artery. All veins carries the oxygenated blood except pulmonary vein. So pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood back to the heart. This pulmonary artery carries the blood away from the heart to be oxygenated. And that one shows a complete circuit, which is a double saturation. I think we can have the definitions. Under double saturation, we have two types: pulmonary saturation and systemic saturation. Under double saturation, we have pulmonary saturation, that is number one. We have systemic saturation. As a pulmonary saturation is a separate from systemic saturation. Pulmonary saturation carries the oxygenated blood away from the heart to the lungs. So pulmonary artery carries blood to the lungs, so that one to the heart, and brings back oxygenated blood back to the heart. That is, carries blood which is deoxygenated, it goes to the lungs, it is oxygenated, it comes back to the heart when it is oxygenated. That one is referred to as pulmonary saturation. From the heart, then we have systemic saturation. Carries oxygenated blood away from the heart to the body and returns back oxygenated blood back to the heart. Let's go quickly to think about what are the advantages of a double circulatory system over a single circulatory system. There are a number of advantages that are going to be going through, which are advantages of a double saturation over a single saturation. Number one, the blood flows into and from the body at a relatively high pressure, therefore blood can be pumped for a long distance. So it means that the blood is pumped at high pressure, so it can take a long distance and go to different body parts. Number 2, oxygen and nutrients plus hormones. If I say hormones, these are chemical messengers, are delivered to the tissues at high speed. So nutrients can reach the body cells at high speed in a single saturation. Quickly, let's talk about the third one. Waste products are removed at a relatively high speed. These waste products can just be removed from the body tissues at a high speed from tissues to the excretory organs. In excretory organs, there are very many excretory organs. Can talk about the skin, can talk about the kidney can also be acting as excretory organs. So removing a waste product can take place very quickly. We have double circulatory system ensures that we are giving out tissues and muscle full oxygen. So oxygen can reach into tissues and muscles very easily because you know that muscles and tissues need more oxygen for doing their work. Double circulatory system is more efficient. Blood is pumped exactly where it is needed, and the blood pressure must not be too high in pulmonary saturation. Otherwise, it may damage the delicate capillaries in the lungs. Lastly, let's talk about a comparison between a double saturation and a single saturation. On the right-hand side, I have a single saturation. On the left, I have a double saturation. Blood passes through the heart once during a complete circuit of the body. I mentioned it. The blood passes once to make a complete circuit. The blood passes through the heart twice during one complete circuit. Why I mentioned the blood comes from the heart, it goes to the lungs, it comes back to the heart, and now it is pumped to different parts of the body through aortic artery. Blood has a low pressure in a single saturation. The blood moves with low pressure. But here, the blood moves with high pressure. That's what the delivering nutrients and oxygen to the muscles and tissues is relatively very high compared to a single saturation. It is present in fishes. It is present in fish. And this one is present in reptiles, amphibians, birds, and even mammals. So mammals, reptiles, birds, they have a double saturation. As I gave you an example of the lion, which is belonging to mammals, and human, which is belonging to mammals, amphibians, reptiles, and birds, they have a double saturation. Pulmonary saturation is absent here, but in case of a double saturation, we have a pulmonary saturation. As you remember, I said pulmonary saturation, the blood is moving when it is deoxygenated and goes to the lungs. It comes back when it is oxygenated and comes back to the heart. So here in single saturation, there is no pulmonary saturation. We mentioned about the heart has two chambers. As you remember on fish, we talked about the atrium and ventricles. But here the heart has four chambers. We have the atrium, the two on each side. I remember, if I can give you a single diagram, this is the structure of the heart, which is 3-3. If you get the letter 3 and you divide it, because the heart is divided by the septum, and we have this chamber, we have this chamber, we have left atrium, we have left ventricle, we have right atrium, we have right ventricle. So the human heart has got four chambers compared to that of the fish, which has two chambers, only the atrium and the ventricles. Quickly, let us try to go through home assignment. We are making our lesson, we are winding our lesson, but before we leave our lesson, we have to go through some of the home assignment. And I think this home assignment, I have to go through with you that home assignment in the next onset of the lesson, when you are going to be having a lesson 2 in biology in a human circulatory system. I left with you, I'm going to leave with you almost 3 numbers. Number 1 is saying, what are the main functions of the humans of the circulatory system? Number 2 is to distinguish between single saturation and a double saturation. And you give one example on each type of saturation. Student, I think you are getting what I'm saying. And what I mean to you, these things are very important. You try also to give some of the examples of a single saturation and a double saturation. How do they differ? Number 3, you have to describe the advantages of a double saturation over a single saturation. So student, this is the assignment to the lesson of Senior 3, and I hope everybody will just go that assignment and you do it. And in the next onset, I will bring you the correction of the work. So students, thank you very much for your attentive, for watching, listening, and noting important concept in our lesson. Thank you very much, and stay home, and may God bless you.